This firewood cutting rack that I built years ago has come in very handy when doing major pruning on trees or falling trees. I end up with lots of branches left over. The rack makes it easy to cut an abundant supply of small to medium wood for starting and stoking fires. This wood would otherwise probably be thrown in a pile and left to rot. If you like this video, please subscribe. There will be many more videos yet to come on a variety of subjects. Now you could throw all these branches in a pile and cut them up with a chainsaw, but it's hard to control the wood that way and all too easy for your chainsaw to hit the dirt, which will instantly dull the blade. Building a rack like this will keep the saw blade out of the dirt, makes it easy to cut a large amount of wood all at once, all the right size, and it's safer. Now this one I built mostly with 1x4s and sheetrock screws and a drill. You could make yours any size you want depending on your needs. I wouldn't make it too much heavier or it would be harder to move. Actually, this one has served me really well for over 30 years now. You can see that I've hit the rack several times with my saw, which has made a few dents in it, but it hasn't really hurt anything. And at one point I did have to add a few more screws. It was getting a little wobbly in places. But overall it works really great, and I'm just amazed at how much wood I can cut using it. You can even flip it over and use it for a table, and when I'm not using it for cutting wood, I usually hang it on the wall under the eaves where it'll keep dry and doesn't rot. Now when you're loading the rack, you need to put the smaller and longer wood first, and you can take a tape measure and a piece of chalk and mark beyond the edges of the rack, however far out you want to go to cut longer pieces of wood. If you do have wood that is curvy, try to get all the curves going in the same direction. Usually it works best with straight wood. You do want to keep your saw blade reasonably snug on your saw, because if your chain is loose, it's easy for it to catch on smaller pieces of wood and get thrown off of the bar. So keep it tight and also very sharp, because a sharp blade is going to cut through the wood. If it starts getting dull, it's more likely to catch on a log and cause the log to roll instead of cutting it. So it's actually more dangerous if your blade is dull. Usually it just takes 3 swipes with a file. Just make sure that you cut every tooth the same amount and on the same angle, and that both sides are even so that it'll cut straight. I put a couple of chains over the top of the wood to hold it down and to hold it all together so that it doesn't move around too much on me. If you were cutting bigger wood, you wouldn't necessarily need chains. And I start at the ends. You can cut however much you have sticking out of the end of the rack first, and then work your way toward the middle. And with my saw, it works good to cut about 2 inches from the posts straight down, and the wood all ends up being about the same size that way. The main amount of work, actually time consuming, is to cut all the branches off the wood if it turns out it has a lot of side branches. Loading it up in the rack and cutting it all up actually doesn't really take all that long. And I'm always surprised at how much wood I end up with. So you want to tilt the blade up so that you're pulling down on the wood as you start to cut it, so that it doesn't pull the wood out of place and start rolling on you. And if your bar gets stuck in there, you can usually wiggle it loose or just push the cut wood aside and then keep on going. Overall, it's surprising how well this works. Keep a good grip on your saw and let the saw do the work. Don't put too much pressure, downward pressure on it. Just let the saw eat its way through the wood. As you get back down to your last cut, you may need to arrange your chains and make sure your pile is still pretty stable, because it's not as heavy as it was before, and it's easier for it to go sideways on you. Now, if I had a Russian fireplace or a rocket mass heater, this would be the perfect wood for that, because you wouldn't have to split it. It's already all the right size. You can create a whole large amount of wood pretty quickly out of branches. But I find it very useful having a good supply of smaller wood on hand for starting fires, for stoking them and keeping them going, and it just makes it easier to get the most use out of my bigger logs. And I usually put most of my wood in boxes, because it's easy to bring the boxes in the house and one at a time, and then I've got the amount of wood that I need. But you can also stack it in a pile. It's a little hard to crisscross it because it tends to roll. The boxes keep it easy to stack into a pretty big pile, and then I can just bring in the amount that I need. There's a lot of heat value in branches, so it's good to not just let all that wood go to waste. It's handy to have a good supply of wood on hand when winter comes. If you enjoy this, if it's been useful to you, then please subscribe to our channel and enjoy your warm fireplace.